I am Daniel, and I sing.
Awesome. So you guys definitely have quite a history from, I read the whole story about you guys, so from all the numerous lineup changes to the hiatus, Ian being deployed, which was an incredible story. How would you guys say that all of the hardships you guys have faced have helped you when working in this kind of industry?
Obviously, I mean, this industry is trial and error, so you learn from your mistakes and you learn from the mistakes that you don't make. I mean, it really varies, and you know, you have to walk through the mud to get to the top, you know. So it's definitely benefited us, like, entirely. Just learning, that's the best way to do it, you know. Instead of having it handed to you on a silver platter, definitely going through the trials and tribulations has made it just amazing. Like, just to actually be here is fantastic after what we've been doing, for sure.
Absolutely. So I apologize if you get asked this next question a lot, but where does your name come from? I've really liked the band name ever since I've heard it.
Okay, so when we started the band initially, we were just completely, I mean, we had no more ideas. Like, we had gone through every band name possible and it was all cheesy and corny. So two of the original members, our bass player, Ian, and our guitar player, our original guitar player, no longer in the band, Jordan, sat down and just went through all of their favorite CD lyric booklets, you know? And just, we went through it, and it actually came from a Bayside line, Storming Stages and stuff.
Cool, okay. So how was working on the Small Town Favorites EP different in comparison to anything you guys had really ever written before with the previous EPs?
Well, when we had written with the new lineup, we wrote Anchorless, and we wrote that extremely rushed. Like, we wrote it in maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks, and a lot of it we even wrote in the studio. So Small Town Favorites was the first release that we've done as, like, the new lineup, where we had time to just sit and write. And
nice.
I mean, we boarded ourselves up in a warehouse for months and just wrote and demoed and wrote and demoed, and after that we went to a new producer. I've recorded with the same producer pretty much for my entire career until Small Town Favorites. So
nice.
Going to someone different, we definitely we had a lot more time to spend on making the record as well. We were in, like, a basement studio in Alpharetta, Georgia. When I say basement, I don't mean like a carpet basement. Obviously, like a more luxurious basement.
Yeah.
Than just a basement would imply, but we were just boarded up there as well for 3 weeks. It was like another world. In this record, we took a different angle on it, and we wanted to make a less guitar heavy record, but still a full throttle record. So we just layered and layered and layered, and it's completely different than anything we've ever done before. We're all incredibly proud of it.
Fantastic. I mean, it definitely shows on, I gave the whole thing a listen. It's fantastic. So yeah. So this brings me to my next question. Why has there been no Stages and Stereos album? There's always been just EPs.
Because when you're a DIY band, making a record isn't throwing your friend $300 and recording songs in his bedroom. Like, for us, we want the best product that we can possibly put out. So instead of spending a large amount of, like, a small amount of money on a large quantity of songs, we go quality over quantity, and we want the 5 or 6 songs that we have to be the best songs. And when we gather a budget to make a full length, you better believe that we're going to do it, because it's not that we don't have the material. We have endless amounts of material.
Yeah.
But we're on a cycle right now that I think is great. You know, like, just because we're not putting a full length out every 2 years doesn't mean that we're not putting out material. I think it keeps us fresh in the minds of our fans. So we're constantly, every year, you know, the cycle continues, and every year we put out music. So I don't see anything wrong with that. It's just like putting out a record every 2 years. But
yeah.
So we're gonna stay on our cycle and continue to put out music. And when we get the opportunity to put out a full length, it's going to be, to me, it'll be a milestone for me.
Cool.
I can't wait to do that.
Very well said.
Yeah.
So, are you the lyricist then?
Yes.
Okay. So, 2 song lyric questions. So, for the song "Cool to Be Vain," I'm curious, what is the white line that you're referring to in that song?
Okay. This is it gets a little deep. I mean, when I was younger and like learning how to drive, and it was raining out, my mother was always told me to watch the white line on the side of the road to guide you. So in that white line, metaphorically, is, you know, like, you're like, Cool to Be Vain is about like the hatred that people have and spread like on the internet. You know, like and aren't man or woman enough to come to someone face to face and get problems and just keep it going. So when the white line is when you lose direction and forget even why you're arguing, you know? So, like when you're just completely flabbergasted by where you are, when you realize how foolish you've been, that's the white line beginning to end. So
very interesting.
Yeah.
So for the song "Coupe de Grace," where did the inspiration for that come from? Because I mean, the lyrics and music on that were beautifully crafted.
The lyrics to that song, it's a little wacky as well, but is about like an apocalyptic situation.
Okay.
And what I would do with the person that I love the most on that day, you know, when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Basically, what I would want to do, like, either you have the feeling where you want to just survive, or you could just go and do something great with somebody that you love. Like in the second verse, it says, you know, our place, you know, like our spot. So we would just go to our spot that's secluded, and it would just be me and that person, and just enjoy the last moments that we have on Earth together. And, you know, the one more drink to the end of the world kind of thing. Like, so it's just about what I would want to do in the last days that I had.
Awesome. So what would you say is a typical songwriting process like for you guys? Like what kind of mindset do you guys have when you go in to write something, whether it's lyrics or someone has a chord progression that they want to come up with?
That's exactly what happens. I mean, all of us write, so someone could have a melody or a progression. We just basically bring any idea that we have to the table, and then it's normally never a full song. Normally it's just bits and pieces. And then the band, we sculpt it together, and everyone brings in their influence, and that's what creates the sound that Stages and Stereos carries right now.
Fantastic.
Every single influence.
Great.
Yeah.
So the next 2 questions I ask to every artist that I interview, and they're a little deep. The first one is, what kind of message would you like fans to walk away with after listening to your music?
That's a really good question. What kind of message would I like to send to them?
Yeah.
I want to move people. Like I want to make them feel a certain way. You know, like when I was growing up, like songs meant so much to me, even in like life situations. So like a song meant so much more to me. Like it's the way they interpret it. You know, I want them to interpret it in their own way, and I want it to move them and make them feel a certain way. Like even if it's a breakup, like I want our song to get them through that, or like just move them, you know, like whether they're driving down the road in a car with all their friends on the way to the beach with the windows down, you know, like just feel it, and like it's the soundtrack to their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what does music mean to you?
Everything. It's my life, it's my drive. If I didn't have it, I would be in a bad place. I mean, whether a bad place could be a desk job where I was unhappy, and you know, music is completely everything to me.
Great. And the last question I got is, after the Glamour Kills Tour, which you guys are currently on, what are the plans for Stages and Stereos right now?
Like we talked about earlier in the interview, to continue on the cycle and tour as much as possible and spread the word of Stages and Stereos to everybody that we possibly can. and get ourselves out there as much as possible. Continue playing shows, continue making records, and do it day by day. You know, just keep pushing and never stop.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do the interview.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you.